Hey guys, my name is Matsumo, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook and Twitter message. The first question for the day comes from Melody, and it is, what are your thoughts about the muzzle brake? Do you think that now the flash hider and the compensator are completely useless? Well, I think it might be a little bit too early to tell if they're useless because I haven't used this on every single weapon in the game, but at least so far, I don't know what it's like on console, but on PC, the muzzle brake is incredibly powerful. With the introduction of the extended barrel too, you would think that we would have more variety in the game now that we have about 4 or 5 different barrels to choose from, but it seems like there's even less customization in the barrel department because the muzzle brake is that powerful. Now, if you are going to be someone who is just going to lay into the enemy, you're not going to tap fire at all, the compensator is probably going to be a better choice on some of the guns. And I know that some people may still want to use the flash hider or the suppressor if they're going for more of that stealthy role, but it seems like on pretty much every single weapon, as long as you're not holding down the trigger for 10 seconds, the muzzle brake is just the superior pick on all of these guns. The way that I assumed things were going to work was that the first shot was going to have almost no recoil, and then the rest were going to be like you had no barrel on the gun whatsoever. So you'd have to make the choice. Do I want to have a muzzle brake for extreme tap fire? Do I really want to tap fire my gun to go for those headshots? Do I want to have a flash hider that's more for burst fire? Maybe the first 3 to 5 shots are going to have reduced recoil. Or do I want to have a compensator that's just more for ripping into the enemy and holding down the trigger? I assumed that was going to be the way that things worked with these 3 stages of attachments, but that just doesn't seem to be the case. And well, once again, this might be too early to tell. I mean, the patch just came out recently, and probably more testing needs to be done, but at least so far, I wouldn't be surprised if Ubisoft made some further adjustments to the muzzle brake, because it seems like there's no reason not to use this on every single one of the weapons. And so let me know what your guys' experience has been. Do you think that the muzzle brake is too powerful? Do you love it right now and you don't want things to change? Or do you think they should go on in and maybe slightly tweak some things here and there by either buffing the other attachments so that they're more appealing or slightly reducing the power of the muzzle brake? Let me know down below. The next question comes from Benjamin, and it is, do you think that sniping in Battlefield 1 is too satisfying? I feel like snipers might be too good compared to the other classes. Well, I don't think anything can be too satisfying, because if it is too satisfying, that's a good thing, right? But I will agree with you that snipers in Battlefield 1 are incredibly powerful, and that's due because of a couple of factors. The main one being is that snipers don't really have any competition at long-range combats. If you look back at past Battlefield games, a lot of the weapons that you had available to you, light machine guns, DMRs, assault rifles, they would have no problem counter-sniping an enemy recon who was 100 or 200 meters away as long as you were a decent shot. You can't really do that in Battlefield 1. DICE has taken a much more severe rock, paper, scissors balance when it comes to the different classes. If you take your weapon that's not suited for a certain combat situation, you're gonna be in for a rude awakening. An assault player should not be trying to counter-snipe an enemy's scouts. You should not be bringing a DMR really up close and personal when you're going against an assault player, because you're just gonna lose that firefight. And while there is a little bit of wiggle room here, like, don't get me wrong, you can use a DMR up close, you can use it for long-range combats, it's not as gray as what we got in past Battlefield titles. And so I think the reason why the Scout is as satisfying as it is in Battlefield 1 is that as long as you're playing it appropriately and you're keeping your distance from the action, you don't really have any competition other than enemy scouts. On top of the fact that they also increased the bolt velocity on pretty much all of the bolt-action rifles compared to past Battlefield games. As long as you were in that sweet spot distance, about 100 or 200 meters away, the bolt velocity is significantly faster than past Battlefield titles, so you don't have to compensate for that as much, just making it easier to line up these headshots. Those two factors, I think, really contribute to how powerful this class is in Battlefield 1. Does this mean that I think that they deserve a nerf? I don't know if I'd go that far. We have to remember that the map we played on was gigantic. It really suited itself to this class, and I have a feeling that when we get access to the other maps in the game that focus on more close quarter combat, the Scout isn't going to seem nearly as advantageous or as appealing. And so while I absolutely agree with you that the Scout class is incredibly powerful in Battlefield 1, it is very satisfying, I think it might be a little bit too early to tell if they deserve a nerf right now. The next question comes from Tony, and it is, do you think that they went a bit too far with the Blackbeard nerf? His shield seems to be made of paper now. I'll be completely honest, and I might be in the minority here, but I really like the way that they handled the Blackbeard nerf, and I think he's in a much better place than he was in the past. Before, he was a god on some maps. There was no way that you could push him off of the objective. If he was outside the objective room on a window, you couldn't kill him. Peeking him was a death sentence. Like, I can't tell you how many times I would peek, realize that it was a Blackbeard, shoot to maybe try to distract him and run away, and of course my bullets don't do anything against him. There's no way that I'm gonna break a shield that has 800 health, and then he just kind of lollygags over towards my face and then shoots me and I die. Even though I'm trying to vacate the premise, even though I'm trying to run away from the room, because he has this massive advantage, there just didn't feel like there's anything that I can do. Now, as long as I get a drop on him, maybe I have the chance to take him out. You have to remember that 150 health on a shield is nothing to laugh about. That's a solid amount of shots that the enemy has to shoot the enemy's head. I think people are forgetting this. The enemy has to put at least 4, 5, 6 bullets into that shield before it breaks, and that means that the enemy put 4, 5, 6 bullets into the head of a Blackbeard, where if it was any other operator, they would have died. As long as the Blackbeard is playing it right and they're halfway decent, they still have the advantage, but at least they're not this immortal god outside of the window. And so I like the fact that Blackbeard has to think about it more. They just can't sit outside of a window and feel safe the entire time. They have to be proactive, and they have to use their gadget as a resource like every other gadget in the game. I don't know why Blackbeard is the exception here, where his gadget never broke and was never really a hindrance. And so I'm okay with the way that Blackbeard is balanced right now. Maybe in a couple of weeks we will realize that he's a little too underpowered. Maybe they need to upgrade his shield to like 200 health a pop or something like that. But at least so far, I think he's in a good place. If you're getting a couple kills with Blackbeard and it's saving you from a couple of headshots, it's doing its job. If you kill 2 people and then you die because the enemy broke through your shield and got a headshot on you, I think that's a fair compromise. I mean, you killed 2 for 1. That seems really good. It seems like you did your job as that character, and I feel like it's relatively well balanced. Like I said, I might be in the minority here, but I'm pretty satisfied with the way they balanced him out. The next question is, what do you think about adding in extended magazines into Rainbow Six Siege? Well, I'm definitely not opposed to the idea. I like having more customization in my first-person shooters. I like being able to tailor a weapon to my playstyle. I like to be able to change how a weapon performs, and this would be one way of going about it. But what would be the disadvantage of using extended mags? We don't want another situation, what we had at the beginning of Rainbow Six Siege, where there was only one grip to choose from, and it was always advantageous to choose the grip. There's no reason not to use a grip in Rainbow Six Siege. As soon as you get the renown, as soon as you're able to unlock it, do so because it makes the weapon better. I don't want to have that same problem with extended magazines. So if I add extended mags to my gun, what is the drawback? Are there going to be other options? Will I be able to have a fast reload magazine? Will I be able to have, I have no idea. Like, what would we do to make sure that this doesn't become the guaranteed choice where now everyone's just running around with more ammo and they don't have to reload as often? That is something that I would want to avoid. And so while I like the idea, this is definitely something that Ubisoft would have to take into consideration. And so as long as there is this counterpoint, as long as there is this variety that balances it out, I'm all for it. But if they can't think of anything, then I don't really know if I would want this for Rainbow Six Siege. I mean, one way you could work around it is maybe if you do have extended mags, then the gun performs poorly in another department. Maybe you have to deal with more recoil. I don't know. We're just kind of grasping at straws here. But once again, this is something that Ubisoft would have to take into consideration, and it might be the reason why we haven't gotten something like this already. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed today. Do you agree that the muzzle brake is a little bit too good? Do you think that Blackbeard needs an increase in his power? Let me know down below. As always, if you would like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode of Sunday Mailbox, you can do so by leaving a comment down below or by sending me a Facebook and Twitter message. But yeah, guys, until tomorrow, have a good one and take it easy.